Hi, my name is Ahava Leaptag. I'm the president of AHA Media Group. We're a content strategy and content marketing consultancy located right outside of Washington, D.C. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the introduction to social media and content strategy. For those of you who are entrepreneurs or who are just beginning your marketing journeys with social media and content strategy, I want to talk to you today about basics to think about when setting up these strategies for your marketing program, as well as some of the ins and outs of what's going on today in digital marketing and how you can use these social media channels to find and attract target audiences that will be interested in your products and services. So social media can feel really confusing because there's a lot of different channels that are out there today. These are some of the popular ones that you see up on the screen, like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Flickr, and then the share it button and the RSS feed. And these are all different ways that we can distribute content to our target audiences so that they can learn more about who we are as a brand and what we can offer them. And there's a lot of different things that we need to know when we set up a strategy. There's a lot of different signposts pointing us in different directions, and it's hard to really understand what we're supposed to be doing with all the massive amounts of information that are out there. But really what a strategy is it's about setting up a roadmap so that you can get from point A to point B. And a good way to think about this is that when you input something into your GPS, so let's say you're at your house and you want to go to a friend's house and the friend gives you their address, and you input that address in, and the GPS gives you a set of tactics or a set of turn left here, go 3 miles here, turn right here to get to point B. And that's exactly what you're trying to do when you're setting up a strategy. You're just trying to figure out where you are right now with what you're trying to do, what your goals are, where you want to be, and then what are the things that you're going to do that are going to help you get to that point B. And this is another way to visualize it, but where are we, where are we going, and how do we get there? And the how do we get there is really the use of content and social media. And we're going to dive into what that's about and how that's going to help you build your brand and talk to your target audiences. Now, a lot of people have a lot of different complex definitions for brands, but to me, a brand is a promise of a personality. And if you look at the brands that you see on the slide here, all of them are famous brands that you really recognize immediately from their logos, and you also expect something specific from them. So if you look at Starbucks, you know you're going to get a customized cup of coffee within 4 to 5 minutes. If you look at Coca-Cola, you know that they sell soft drinks and the experience of being happy and enjoying yourself. McDonald's is a place where you can get a fast meal really quickly. Google is a place where you can type anything in and find out a lot of information. And these brands have spent billions of dollars for you to have these impressions of who they are. But really what it's about for you is that you have an expectation of a certain level of service that you can predict from this brand. And that's what you're trying to do with social media and content on the web. You're trying to create a brand for your company or your organization so that when people see your logo or when they encounter your brand, no matter where they encounter it, they're expecting a certain personality. And how do we connect? Well, the way that we connect is through conversations. Right now, you and I are engaged. It's not a dialogue because I can't respond to you, but you're listening to what I have to say and you're thinking it through. And that's what goes on the web billions of times a day through numerous different interactions that people have with friends and colleagues and that they also have with brands. So the web is a marketplace, and in a marketplace, there are conversations going on all of the time. And so as a organization that's representing a certain type of brand and a certain type of promise of personality, you need to decide how those conversations are going to go for your target audiences. So you have to decide the answers to these 5 questions. To whom are you talking? Who are you? What are you trying to say? How do you say it? And when and where do you say it? Because all healthy conversations have appropriate times for the conversation to be had and not appropriate times for the conversation to be had. And the example I always like to use with this is when I'm speaking to a large group, I'll go over to somebody and I'll say, "Hi, my name is Ahava." And the person will say, "Hi, my name is Debbie." And I'll say, "Hi, Debbie, how much money do you make?" And everybody in the audience gets all nervous. But really, the reason that I do that is to show that every conversation needs to have a certain order to it, and there's societal expectations of what conversations happen when and where. And so by answering the 5 questions on the screen in front of you, you're going to be able to avoid having awkward conversations as a brand with your target audience that may turn them off and may make them not want to do business with your brand. You also need to know, when you are thinking about content and social media, who is going to be responsible for the workflow of all these different things. So who's going to be responsible to plan for the content that you're going to distribute on social media? Who's going to be responsible to create it, to publish it, to distribute it, to get it out into the world on different channels that we have available to us now, to analyze or measure it, and then to govern it. And when we talk about governance, what we're talking about is that consistent experience across all channels so that your brand comes across the same way no matter where your target audiences encounter it. So today we're going to define content strategy and content marketing, and we're going to talk about how to collaborate on content and how to set up a pilot program. But really, we're also just going to focus on the social media channels that you have available to you and what you can do with those. So again, content is a conversation. It's a conversation in a marketplace. There's a buyer and a seller, and people have to decide which role they're playing and the answer to those 5 questions. To whom are we talking? Well, we're talking to our customers. And so if you want to do a really good job at setting up your roadmap, you're going to figure out who your customers are, what they care about, where they spend their money, are their pain points, and you're going to have answers to those pain points, how your products and or services can provide solutions for them so that they don't have to look elsewhere, let's say at one of your competitors, to find that thing. Then you have to define who are we, right? So you need to be answering the question of who is our brand? What is our brand personality? And what are we promising when people encounter us? And in this way, content reveals to the world who we are. And as we answer the rest of those questions about what we're trying to say, how we're saying it, and when I say how we're saying it, I'm talking about voice and tone, the different ways that we answer people's questions depending on the situation, and then when and where we say it, we continue to reveal more and more about who we are as brands and organizations and what people can expect from us. So remember, the conversations that you're having with your target audiences are encapsulated inside of content. And as you disseminate that content throughout the web, people are going to begin to understand, to expect certain things from you and certain things from your brand. So content is the conversation that fuels the sales process. Now, some of you may not be in sales, quote unquote, or you may not work for a for-profit organization. You may represent a charity or a government organization, and you still have an achievement threshold. It may not be profit. Your success may not be measured in how much money you make, but you still have a way to measure that success. And so whatever it is that you're doing, content is that conversation that helps you get to that achievement threshold, whatever it is. Now, in the traditional sales funnel, it used to be that we would capture people by getting their email address or some other way to contact them, like a phone number. We would engage them, we would nurture them, we would have sales contact them, and then that person would become a customer. The reason I don't like the traditional sales funnel is that at the end, customers fall out. And that isn't really what we're trying to do with the web. The beauty of digital marketing is that we really can keep nurturing people in a very real-time way. So let's look at this, what I call the customer loop. In the purple box, you start a relationship with a customer. So this person finds your content and he or she becomes an audience member. They sign up for their email, or they like you on Facebook, or they decide to become a part of a group that you run on LinkedIn. And then that audience member becomes engaged by finding out answers to their questions. Something about you and what your brand represents for them had enough of an interest for them at that moment to become engaged. Once they like the answers to the questions that you give and they feel like a trust has been established, at that point you might want to think about sales engaging the prospect. Now, depending on what you sell, this could happen in 30 seconds and it could happen in, 30 months. There are certainly customers I've spoken to who have, 3 to 5 year long sales cycles. Let's take buying something online, for example. You're looking for a certain white t-shirt and you Google it and you look at a couple of stores that you know and you find this t-shirt on a vendor that you don't really know that well, but you look around and you see some customer testimonials where people say that this person has the best white t-shirts, and you go ahead and you make that buy. In other cases, in a B2B situation or business to business situation, a prospect might have to look at a website and watch a couple of videos of somebody selling something before they might sign up for an email, and then sales would go out and say, would you be interested in talking to us further? Once the prospect makes that purchase, in the orange box is where the really exciting action begins to happen, because that's where you can continue to nurture the customer and turn them into a lifelong client or somebody who's really going to be interested in whatever it is that you're offering for a very long time. And this customer loop continues again and again and again. The beauty of digital marketing is that we can reach out to people wherever they are, whenever they are, as long as they have a device in front of them. And most people, as we know today, are carrying their smartphones all the time and watching TV on their couches with their tablets. And they're really just engaged and hooked into the digital world in a way that allows marketers tremendous reach that they never had before. But before we dive even further into this, I really want to talk about what content is, because this is where a lot of people get confused, and I think that I have this 3-part way of thinking about content that will really help you as you start to set up your content strategy and social media strategies. So this is a graphic that I think really sort of shows what content is. Content is a piece of information. Okay, so let's pick a piece of information. You sell the nicest white cotton t-shirts on the web, and you want to put that into a content format that people will respond to. Now remember, the people that you want to respond to this are your target audiences. So when you go back to those 5 questions of thinking about who your audience is, the first question you have to ask is, to whom are we speaking? Well, who are these people interested in these white t-shirts? Are they women? Are they men? Are they children? Are they teenagers? And ask yourself a couple of questions about them. So for this particular example, let's say we're trying to get women who want to buy their children white t-shirts for camp. Although why anyone would buy their kid a white t-shirt for camp, I don't know. But let's just say for the purpose of this example. So what content format would you pick? Well, you could pick a blog post. That would be most helpful to talk about the t-shirts and how fabulous they are and where they're made and the sublimeness of the cotton. A white paper probably isn't going to work in this situation because most people aren't going to download a white paper about how fabulous a white cotton t-shirt is. A video might work really well demonstrating the cotton t-shirt and how it pulls and the flexibility that it has and how soft it is, when you put your hand on it. Other things that might work are, customer testimonials, like we said, showing a lot of pictures of the white cotton t-shirt, different people wearing them. Now here comes the critical piece. How are you going to distribute this? Well, based on the format of the content, you're going to decide on the best distribution vehicle. So for example, if you want to let people know this, you're going to put it on your blog and your website and inside your email newsletter and on YouTube. But you're going to pick the formats that are most appropriate for where your people spend their time. So if you look at your analytics and your measurement and you know that most of your target audience who are women looking to buy clothes for their children and they really respond the most to email newsletters, well then that's the distribution vehicle that you should really be using in order to get that information out there. So content formats are written articles, podcasts, videos, photographs, infographics, slideshows, white papers, polls, survey data, the list goes on and on. But content formats are not the way that you distribute it. So again, a video is not the same as YouTube. Content delivery tools are websites, blogs, newsletters, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and SlideShare. Again, a piece of information encapsulated inside of a format and put on a certain distribution vehicle. So this is a really good example that illustrates this point. This is a article from cars.com, and it's about how often you need to replace your brakes. Now, somebody who is looking for this piece of information, is probably typing into Google or Bing, how often do I need to replace my brakes? And they come to this article. And the reason cars.com has this article up here is because they're cars.com, and it makes sense in their sales model for them to have articles like this up on their website. Now, this is the exact same article in the Washington Post, which is a print newspaper. And you can see that the article is the content format. The piece of information is how often do you need to replace your brakes. The content format is the article. But here the distribution are two different channels. One is on the web and one is in a print newspaper. And in this way, you don't have to think about your content formats as tied to your distribution, and you don't have to think about your distribution as tied to your content formats. Just think about the information that you want to get out there, and then the best way to get it out there. Now let's talk about the difference between content strategy and content marketing, because that is a big issue that a lot of people are going to talk to you about, particularly when you're talking about setting up a social media strategy. And the best way that I have to describe content strategy is to talk about this man named Jack Welch. Jack Welch was the CEO of GE, and he's very lauded. People talk about him as being a really great leader. And he did something at GE that was really unbelievable at the time. Although when I describe it to you now, you're going to say, what's the big deal about that? But I think that proves how ingenious it was. Every year in GE, they would look at the entire company and give every single person an annual performance review. If you were in the bottom 10% of GE, you were cut. They no longer, had used you. They said to you, thank you very much for working here, but it's not going to work out. But if you were in the top 10 to 15% of performers at GE, they brought you into their offices and they said, we've identified you as a potential future rock star at GE, and we'd like to move you around the company. So every 2 years, you can go learn about refrigeration in China or finance in New York or light bulbs at our headquarters. And the reason that they did this was because they wanted the future GE leaders to understand the most important thing about the company that there was to understand, and that was how the company makes money. And that's what content strategy is really about. Content strategy has two major goals. The first is to align your content with your business goals. So whatever it is that you're saying on the web, whatever these conversations are, they have to be about helping you reach that achievement threshold. The second thing is that content has to help your user audience or your target audience accomplish their tasks and goals. So if you're missing content, if you're missing a conversation that's going to help people figure out what it is that they need to do online in order to interact with your company to get the most out of your products and services, well, then you're not creating content and conversations that are going to help your users accomplish their goals and tasks. And so that's really what content strategy is. It's thinking about the external messaging portions of content, right? The answers to those 5 questions. But it's also about internal workflow. Who is going to create, manage, and publish all this content? So the best example that I give for this is in Starbucks. When you walk into Starbucks and you ask the barista for a skinny vanilla latte, tall, the barista doesn't think to herself, okay, I need to get a tall hot cup and I need to put 1 spritz of sugar-free vanilla syrup. That's not what she's thinking to herself at all. She knows how to make that cup of coffee like that because, as we said earlier, the Starbucks brand promise is that you can get a personalized cup of coffee within 3 to 4 minutes at any Starbucks across the world, and it's going to taste the same. And so that's what content strategy promises. It promises you that the workflow of creating content, the editorial workflow that you need to create within your organizations to make sure that you have a recipe for how you're going to get these different types of content formats out the door and distributed has already decided, and you don't have to figure it out each and every single time you need to create a piece of content. Now let's talk about what content marketing is. Content marketing is really sort of the digital transformation of the way that people used to share content. So it used to be that people would share content across a white picket fence, so to speak, right? You would meet with people at a country club or, a place of worship or at children's events or at sporting events, and you had friends, and you would ask them, do you know a good dentist? Do you know somebody who I can take to my daughter to learn piano? My son is trying to get into law school. Do you have any advice? But people don't do that anymore. They share information across the web. And so content marketing is really this amalgamation of these different ideas about branding and content strategy and content marketing. Branding answers the question of who you are and why. Content strategy answers the questions of who, how, when, and where. And content marketing is about what you're saying and how you say it. So content marketing is really about sustaining that conversation that you want to have with your target audiences. Now remember that customer loop we talked about in that orange box with the nurture. That's where content marketing happens. You get the person's email address or a different way to contact them, and you continue to talk to them through multiple channels so that you can continue to sustain that important conversation with them. Now, social media is really, to me, just a tool in that distribution channel where we talked about the difference between your article on your blog versus your blog, your video on YouTube versus YouTube itself. And so to me, social media is really about watering holes. It's about where people spend their time. Remember, places of worship, country clubs, sporting events. People gather in different places physically. They also gather in different places virtually now because the technology allows them to do that. So today on Facebook, a friend messaged me and said, she doesn't live in where I live anymore, but, her grandmother does, and she needs to find a notary public. Well, I told her, post it on Facebook and tag the couple of people that that live in our neighborhood, and somebody is bound to respond. It didn't used to be so easy to do something like that. You used to have to go to the yellow pages to find a notary public and to help the person out. And so social media makes it really easy to distribute this content, almost on a megaphone where you can really get it out to a lot of people at once. So let's talk about which channels are right for your organization. And I think the reason that it's so important for you to understand about content being a piece of information inside of a format that you distribute is that you can't have a social media strategy if you don't answer those 5 questions about to whom we are speaking, who are we, what are we saying, how are we saying it, and when and where are we saying it. Because if you don't do that, if you don't answer those questions, it doesn't matter how many times a week you publish on Facebook or how active you are on LinkedIn. If you don't have a strategic roadmap for the answers to those questions and who you're trying to be when you're online, then you're not really helping your customers and you're not helping your own organization. Social media by itself is not enough. It's just a tool to disseminate your information and your messaging. So let's talk about these different channels and how they might be applicable to your organization. Twitter is really best for sharing content and creating community. It's a great way for people to talk to each other. You can only speak in 140 characters or fewer, so it does limit those interactions. When you hashtag subjects, you allow them to be filed under certain groups, which helps people find you. So certainly when I publish topics of information that are interesting to me and my target audiences, they would be hashtagged under content strategy or content marketing or SEO or social media, the things that I'm interested in. So you need to do some research on the hashtags that people use on Twitter that are relevant to you and to your business goals, and then start using those in order to help find other audience members. Facebook is great for sharing any type of content. Visual content seems to do best on Facebook, and it's also really great for creating community. In the last month or so, there's been, and right now the date of this presentation is early May 2014, but in the last month or so, there's been a lot of talk about Facebook because it used to be that brands had organic reach. They could post and they would get, a nice amount of shares. But now, and likes, but now they're not really showing brand pages as much because Facebook wants to monetize content and they're looking for you to pay for ads to show your brand on people's feeds. So I think you just have to be aware of that and watch for what's going to change and happen on Facebook. YouTube is obviously fantastic for video content. People spend a ton of time on YouTube. If you've ever spent any time on it, it's a wormhole. So that's definitely a great place to put your content, and just make sure that you write a really great description so that people can find what it is that you're talking about. Pinterest is great. You can, create different kinds of boards and pin different kinds of content to it. It's great for visual content. Click-through rates on Pinterest are really huge if people find the products that they're looking for. Again, you have to be careful about how you describe things. On LinkedIn, you want to, when I say Pinterest, you have to be careful about how you describe things. You want to be careful about how you describe your boards so that people know to look underneath those types of things. For LinkedIn, you want LinkedIn is really good for B2B content, business-to-business content. It's great for groups and for networking. It has a ton of analytics, particularly if you purchase the premium version of the social media tool, and you can really find out the people that are looking at your profile, and you can send more emails that way, particularly the people that are outside of your network. So depending on what you're selling and what your products and services are, LinkedIn might be a good option for you. To learn more about content strategy, and content marketing, you can pick up my book, The Digital Crown, Winning at Content on the Web. It's available on Amazon.com. My name is Ahava Liebtag, and you can reach me at any of these particular places, including Twitter and Facebook, as well as my email. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.